The rain poured heavily that evening, turning the streets into shallow rivers. People hurried under umbrellas, rushing to get home. Among them was a young woman, walking fast, her hood pulled tight over her head. She wasn't paying much attention to anything else, just the warmth of her apartment and a hot cup of tea waiting for her. But then, she saw them. A man, drenched from head to toe, stood near a bus stop, holding a little girl's hand. The girl, no older than 5, shivered in her thin jacket. The man's face was tense, his eyes scanning the street desperately. Something about them made the woman slow down. "Excuse me," the man called out as she passed, his voice strained. Do you have any change? Just enough for a bus ticket?" The woman hesitated. She had heard similar requests before, but something was different this time. The little girl looked up at her with big, tired eyes, and her heart clenched. "Where are you trying to go?" she asked. The man swallowed hard. "The shelter on Elm Street. We missed the last bus, and I don't have enough for a cab." The woman didn't think twice. "Come on," she said, pulling out her phone. "I'll call you a ride." The man's shoulders sagged in relief. Thank you so much." As they waited under the awning of a closed shop, the woman learned a little more. The man had lost his job a few months ago. His savings ran out, and with no family to turn to, he and his daughter had been moving between shelters. Tonight, they had nowhere to go. The ride arrived, and the woman paid the driver in advance. "Take care," she said softly, watching as the little girl waved at her before the car disappeared into the rain. That should have been the end of it, just a small act of kindness on a cold night. But something kept pulling her thoughts back to them. The next morning, she found herself searching for the shelter's number. When she called, the person on the other end paused. "I'm sorry, but no one by that description stayed here last night." Confused, she asked again, describing the man and the little girl in detail. Another pause. Then a quiet, hesitant voice said, "Ma'am, that man passed away 2 years ago. His daughter was taken in by relatives out of state." Her blood ran cold. The woman stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. The shelter worker's words echoed in her mind, "That man passed away 2 years ago. That can't be right," she stammered. "I saw them last night. I talked to them." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, the worker spoke carefully, as if choosing each word. "You're not the first person to say that." A chill ran down her spine. "What do you mean?" The worker hesitated. "Every year, around this time, someone calls or comes in asking about a man and his little girl. Always the same description. Always in the rain." The woman's hands trembled. She had always believed in things she could see, touch, explain. But this? This was something else. She needed answers. That afternoon, she went to the local library, digging through old newspapers. After hours of searching, she found it, a small article buried in the back pages. 2 years ago. A car accident on Ridge Avenue. A father and his daughter, caught in the storm. The man died instantly. The little girl survived, but with no close family, she was sent to live with distant relatives in another state. The woman stared at the grainy photo beside the article. Her breath caught. It was them. The same faces she had seen the night before. She couldn't let it go. That evening, she drove to Ridge Avenue, the site of the accident. The road was quiet, slick with rain. As she stepped out of her car, a strange feeling settled over her, like she wasn't alone. Then, she saw it. A small teddy bear, half buried in the wet grass near the roadside. Faded, worn, but unmistakably real. Her heart pounded. Was this hers? The little girl's? As she reached down to pick it up, a voice behind her made her jump. "You saw them too, didn't you?" She turned. An elderly woman stood there, her eyes knowing. Every year, when the rain comes, the old woman said softly, they appear. Never for long. Just, looking for help. The young woman swallowed hard. Why? Why them? Why here? The old woman's gaze drifted to the road. Maybe some souls don't rest until their story is heard. She paused, then added, or until someone listens. That night, the woman couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the little girl. Where was she now? Was she okay? Did she even remember her father? A thought struck her. What if she could find her? What if the little girl was still out there, somewhere, carrying a pain no child should? The next morning, she made a decision. She would track down the relatives. She would find the girl. Because now, this wasn't just about a strange encounter in the rain. It was about answers. The woman sat at her kitchen table, the old newspaper clipping spread in front of her. The article mentioned the little girl had been sent to live with an aunt, someone named Priya, but gave no last name or location. How do you even start looking for someone with so little to go on? She took a deep breath and opened her laptop. Maybe social media could help. She typed in variations of Priya plus niece plus car accident, scanning through profiles, but nothing matched. Next, she searched for news about the accident, hoping for more details. Then, buried in an old community forum, she found it. A comment from a woman named Neha, my sister Priya took in her niece after the accident. It's been hard, but she's safe now. No last names. No city. Just Neha. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. She searched, Neha plus Priya plus sister, too many results. Then she tried, Neha plus car accident plus Ridge Avenue. And there it was. A fundraiser page from 2 years ago. Help Neha's family after tragic loss. The photo showed a woman with tired eyes, Neha, standing beside another woman who looked just like her. Priya. And in Priya's arms, a little girl. The same little girl from the bus stop. The page listed a town 3 hours away. The drive felt endless. Rain tapped lightly on the windshield, just like that first night. The woman's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. What would she even say? Hi, I think I saw your dead brother and his daughter as ghosts, and now I need to know if your niece is okay? She shook her head. This was crazy. But she couldn't turn back now. The address led her to a small house with a faded blue door. She stood there, hesitating, until a woman stepped outside, Priya. She looked older than in the photo, her hair streaked with gray. Can I help you? She asked, wary. The woman's throat went dry. I think I knew your brother. Priya's expression changed instantly. Pain. Suspicion. My brother died 2 years ago. I know, the woman said softly. But I saw him. 3 nights ago. With your niece. Priya's face paled. She stepped back, shaking her head. No. That's not possible. I know how it sounds, the woman rushed on. But he was looking for help. For her. And I think he led me here. Priya stared at her for a long moment. Then, to the woman's surprise, her eyes filled with tears. You'd better come inside. The house was warm, toys scattered across the floor. A little voice giggled from another room, her. The little girl. Alive. Safe. Priya sat down heavily. After the accident, she wouldn't speak for months. The doctors said it was trauma. But then, strange things started happening. She took a shaky breath. Every year, when the rains come, she wakes up crying. Says she sees her papa outside, waiting. That he's lost. The woman's skin prickled. Just like the bus stop. Priya wiped her eyes. I thought it was nightmares. But then, others saw him too. Neighbors. Strangers. Always asking for help. Always in the rain. The pieces clicked together. He wasn't just appearing, he was stuck. And his daughter, she felt it. The woman leaned forward. Where is she now? Priya nodded toward the hallway. Asleep. But, maybe you should see her. They tiptoed into a small bedroom. There, curled under a blanket, was the little girl. Peaceful. Unaware. Then, as if sensing them, her eyes fluttered open. And she smiled. You came, she whispered. Papa said you would. The little girl's words hung in the air like a whisper you feel more than hear. Papa said you would come. The woman's breath caught. She knelt beside the bed, her voice barely above a murmur. Papa talked to you? The girl nodded, her small fingers clutching the edge of the blanket. In my dreams. He walks in the rain, but he can't find the way home. She tilted her head, studying the woman with an eerie calm. He said you have kind eyes. That you'd help us. Priya stood frozen in the doorway, her hand pressed to her mouth. The woman gently took the girl's hand. It was warm. Alive. What else did he say? The girl's face clouded for a moment. He said, he forgot something important. Something he needs to give back. She frowned, struggling to remember. A box. A red box. Priya gasped. The jewelry box. Back in the kitchen, Priya rummaged through an old cabinet, her hands shaking. After the accident, the police returned my brother's things. Most of it was damaged. She pulled out a dented metal tin. But this was in his coat pocket. Inside lay a small, water-stained red jewelry box. The woman opened it carefully. A tarnished silver locket sat inside, its chain tangled. When she pried it open, a folded slip of paper fluttered out. Priya snatched it up, her eyes scanning the faded writing. Then her legs gave way. She sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. It's for her. The note was simple. For my little star on your 7th birthday. Keep this close, and no matter where I am, I'll always be with you. Love, Papa. The woman's vision blurred. He'd bought it before the accident. Never got to give it to her. Priya wiped her cheeks roughly. Her birthday is next week. She'll be 7. A cold realization settled over the room. He'd been trying to deliver it all along. That night, as the woman lay on Priya's couch, sleep wouldn't come. The rain pattered against the windows, the same steady rhythm as that first encounter. A soft sound made her sit up. The little girl stood in the hallway, her nightgown glowing in the dim light. She wasn't looking at the woman, but past her, at the front door. He's here, she whispered. The doorknob rattled. Not from the wind. From the other side. The woman's blood turned to ice as the doorknob twisted again, slow, deliberate. Someone was trying to get in. She shot up from the couch, her pulse hammering in her throat. The little girl hadn't moved, her wide eyes fixed on the door. Sweetheart, the woman whispered, stepping forward, step back. Click. The lock disengaged by itself. The door creaked open. A gust of wet wind rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and something else, old paper and gasoline, the lingering smell of a car that had long since crashed. The doorway stood empty. But the little girl smiled. Papa, she breathed. A sudden pressure filled the air, like the moment before a lightning strike. Then. Tick. 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 Drops of water appeared on the floor, forming a path from the doorway toward the girl. As if someone invisible was walking toward her, dripping wet. The woman's instincts screamed to run, but her feet stayed rooted. This wasn't a horror movie ghost. This was a father. The little girl reached out her small hands. "You found it," she said to the empty air. The temperature plummeted. The woman could see her own breath now, puffing white in the suddenly frigid room. Then, right beside the coffee table, the red jewelry box moved. It slid across the wood by itself, stopping at the girl's feet. Priya came rushing down the hallway, her face pale. "What's happened?" She froze, seeing her niece crouch down to pick up the locket. The girl's fingers trembled as she clasped it around her neck. The moment the locket touched her skin, the overhead light flickered violently. Bang! Every cabinet in the kitchen flew open at once. The woman ducked, her heart in her throat. When she looked up, the little girl was crying silently, clutching the locket. And the air. The air felt different. Lighter. The little girl looked up at the ceiling, though there was nothing there. "Okay, Papa," she whispered. "I'll be brave." Then. A sound the woman would remember forever. A sigh. Not creepy, not ominous. The relieved exhale of someone who'd finally set down the weight they'd been carrying for years. The front door swung shut by itself. The rain outside stopped as suddenly as if someone had turned off a tap. And just like that, he was gone. The bus ticket felt heavy in her hands, like it was made of something more than paper. She turned it over, half expecting writing to appear, some message, some sign. But it was just an ordinary ticket. Her hometown. She hadn't been back since the funeral. 12 years. She'd promised herself she'd never return. Too many ghosts there, the real kind. The kind that lived in empty chairs at the dinner table and in the way her mother's voice still cracked when she said his name over the phone. Priya watched her carefully from across the kitchen. "You don't have to go." The woman swallowed hard. "I think I do." The little girl, still clutching her new locket, pushed her cereal bowl aside. "The sad man needs help too," she said matter-of-factly. A chill ran down the woman's spine. "What sad man?" "The one who stands behind you sometimes." The girl tilted her head. "He looks like you." The bus left at noon. She barely remembered packing, barely remembered calling work to say she'd be gone for a few days. All she could think about was her father's face, not as she'd last seen him, pale and still in a hospital bed, but how he'd been before the sickness took him. Loud laugh. Rough hands that could fix anything. The way he'd hum old songs while making breakfast. The little girl's words haunted her. The sad man who stands behind you. Had he been there all along? The bus ride felt like traveling through time. Every mile brought back memories she'd spent years running from. The fields where they'd picked strawberries. The gas station with the broken sign that never got fixed. The old movie theater where he'd taken her to see every cartoon that came out. As the bus pulled into the station, her hands were shaking. She stepped off into air that smelled exactly like she remembered, like pine trees and distant barbecue. Like home. Then she saw it. Across the street, outside the old diner they used to go to every Saturday morning. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing that same faded blue jacket he'd loved. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking past her, at something only he could see. And he was solid. Not ghostly, not see-through. As real as anyone else on the street. Her breath left her body in a rush. "Dad?" The moment she said it, he turned, and smiled the way he used to, the way that crinkled his eyes. Then he pointed down the street, toward the little park by the river. When she blinked, he was gone. But she knew where to go. The park was empty except for an old woman feeding pigeons. The woman walked to their spot, the big oak tree near the water where they'd had picnics. Nothing seemed unusual. Just grass and dandelions and the quiet rush of the river. Then she saw it. Half buried in the roots of the tree, a small metal box, rusted shut. Her hands shook as she pried it open. Inside was a waterlogged notebook, his fishing journal. And tucked between the pages, a photo of her at 6 years old, grinning with a missing tooth, holding up a tiny fish. Written on the back in his messy handwriting. Best day ever. Never forget how much joy you bring me, kiddo. Something wet hit the page. It took her a second to realize they were her own tears. A breeze rustled the leaves above her, warm, like a hand on her shoulder. And for the first time in 12 years, she didn't feel the crushing weight of his absence. She felt him here. The fishing journal's pages stuck together as she flipped through them, the ink blurred by time and moisture. Most entries were mundane: weather conditions, bait types, the occasional sketch of a particularly big catch. But near the back, one entry made her breath catch. Doc says 6 months if I'm lucky. Don't want her to see me waste away. Need to finish the treehouse before. The sentence ended abruptly, as if he couldn't bring himself to write the rest. Her vision blurred. He knew. He knew long before the doctors told the family. All those weekends he'd spent obsessively building in the backyard, refusing help, he wasn't just making her a playhouse. He was building his last gift. A rustle in the grass made her look up. The old woman feeding pigeons was gone. In her place stood a figure in a blue jacket, his back to her, staring at the river. She didn't call out this time. She just whispered, "You finished it." I slept in that treehouse every summer until college. The figure didn't turn, but his shoulders straightened slightly, as if hearing something he'd waited years to know. Then he pointed downstream, toward the railroad bridge. When she blinked, he was gone again. The bridge had been abandoned for decades, its wooden planks rotted through in places. As a kid, she'd been forbidden from going near it. Now she understood why. Halfway across, nailed to a support beam, was another metal box, this one newer, free of rust. Inside was a single key and an address written on a pharmacy notepad. The address led to a storage facility on the edge of town. Unit number 14. Her hands shook as she turned the key. The roll-up door screeched like it hadn't been opened in years. Inside. A motorcycle. His motorcycle. The one he'd sold suddenly, 2 months before his diagnosis. The one he'd claimed was too dangerous to keep. Draped over the handlebars was his old leather jacket. And pinned to it, a note in that same messy handwriting. For when you're ready to stop running, kiddo. Love, Dad. She buried her face in the jacket. It still smelled like him, motor oil and peppermint gum. Her phone buzzed. Priya. You need to come back. Found something about my brother's accident. It wasn't random. Attached was a photo of a newspaper clipping she hadn't seen before, a brief mention of a hit-and-run on Ridge Avenue the same night. A witness described a black SUV speeding away. The last text made her blood run cold. Police never found the driver. But my brother's wallet was missing when they recovered his body. The motorcycle's engine roared to life like it had been waiting 12 years for this moment. As she sped back toward the city, the wind tearing at her hair, she finally understood why her father's spirit had led her here. This wasn't just about closure, it was about being brave enough to face what came next. The moment she arrived at Priya's house, the little girl ran to the window. "The sad man isn't following you anymore," she announced. "He's smiling now." Priya looked like she hadn't slept. She spread police reports across the kitchen table, documents she'd spent years fighting to obtain. They never investigated properly. Just called it a tragic accident and closed the case. The woman studied the reports. Then something caught her eye, a detail everyone had missed. A security camera timestamp from a gas station 2 blocks away. The time matched the accident. Her fingers trembled as she dialed the number listed for the gas station. The owner answered on the fifth ring. "Hello, I know why you're calling," the old man interrupted, his voice weary. "That footage has haunted me for years. Come tomorrow. I'll give you what I have." The security tapes were grainy, but clear enough. A black SUV swerving violently. The father pushing his daughter out of harm's way. The license plate just visible as it sped off. The gas station owner wiped his eyes. "I tried giving this to police. They said without a body, there was no crime to investigate. But I kept copies. Just in case." That afternoon, they went to the police station with the evidence. The sergeant on duty recognized the license plate immediately. It belonged to a city councilman's son. "He was at a fundraiser that night," the sergeant muttered. "Claims he was home by 10. His face darkened as he compared the timestamp. The accident happened at 9:47. The arrest made headlines. The councilman's son broke down immediately, confessing he'd been drinking. He'd panicked, driven away, used his father's connections to bury the truth. When the little girl was told, she simply nodded and touched her locket. "Papa can rest now." That night, for the first time in years, she didn't wake up crying. The woman stood at Ridge Avenue one last time as the sun set. The wind carried the faint scent of peppermint. "Thank you," she whispered, to the father who'd saved his daughter twice, to her own dad who'd led her here, to whatever forces had brought them all together. As she turned to leave, something glinted in the grass, a single silver coin, impossibly bright. The exact fare for a bus ride. She smiled through her tears and slipped it in her pocket. Some debts could never truly be repaid. But some gifts, she now understood, never stopped giving.